All right, we're going to conclude Measure for Measure, and I haven't got nearly as far as I wanted to thus far, so I'm going to have to try and speed through it if that's even possible, but I cannot skip over Act 3, Scene 1, where we find the crisis scene of the whole play. Not unusual that the crisis scene is in the third act, as I said to you. Shakespeare's plays build to a crisis in general, and then the crisis is resolved. Sometimes it's resolved rather quickly, but often there's some twists and turns along the way as well. But eventually it will resolve itself, and this is part of Shakespeare's worldview as much as anything. There is an idea of order and justice connected to that. And the order is going to be asserted one of two ways. Either it's going to resolve in a tragic fashion or in a comic fashion. If it's tragic, then the malefactors are going to be punished and killed, and order is going to be restored. We'll see that when we look at the tragedy shortly. In the comedy, it's rather the opposite, that there are marriage scenes at the end. A marriage scene or scenes, as was the case when we looked at A Midsummer Night's Dream, in which then there is this, we can read it theologically, in both cases actually theologically. It's an assertion of God's providence over an ordering of all things and the harmony of all things, which is orchestrated by implication by God, but certainly by the playwright in reflection upon God's activity. So this is why I say whatever we hold of Shakespeare's personal faith, Catholic, Protestant, debates over that rage in the Academy, or none at all, the plays themselves reflect a Christian worldview very strongly. And the actual subject matter of what Shakespeare particularly thought, well, we know it in his plays, and we know it in his poetry, and that's about it. We don't have a great deal else to go on. But Act 3, Scene 1, as I say, is a crisis scene of the play, and the tragic potential of the play is at its highest point, and we meet Claudio and the provost in the dungeon. Now, the Duke is also there disguised as a friar. And remember, the Duke thus far, the Duke is the dramaturge figure. He is the playwright, the surrogate for Shakespeare in the play. He is an actor, but he's an actor that knows more about what's going on than the other characters. He's trying to pull the strings of the other characters from behind the scenes, even though he's inserted within the play. But he's doing things without their awareness, but with the audience's awareness. So again, there's something about that's being taught about the nature of art to the audience by the playwright, and is suggesting that art does have a socially useful function. And in fact, a socially necessary function. Because again, human beings are imitative beings. They delight in imitation, as Aristotle noted, and they are going to imitate something. And it's better that they imitate something that is presented as neatly as Shakespeare presents it, about the orderliness of life and the harmony of social life and the source of that, and then they are just simply by experiencing the world, which may throw them on a less evident display of God's providence. Somebody dies in their midst, it's not obvious that it's a punishment for anything. It may seem rather arbitrary. At the end of their life, they may look back and say, I can see God's hand in this, but not at the time. In the play, on the stage, you can see the whole presented in a very compact way, and it's didactic in that sense. Helps you orientate your life in relation to the play. And Shakespeare is regularly doing this in his plays, I'd submit to you, and also so here in Measure for Measure. So the prison scene is a dramatic or a dramatization of the spiritual experience of the fall, you could see, if Claudio is a representative of man in general and his transgression. I'm not saying he's an Adam figure or anything like that, but still, both Claudia and Isabella are reflecting that they are actually guilty, even though it's a trivial thing, relatively speaking, what they've the sin that they've committed. Nonetheless, it was against the law technically, and it has resulted in a very, very harsh judgment indeed. And the overarching themes of the play are reflected in the title of the play, Measure for Measure, and it's the question for the audience is this just? And in one sense, it's obviously so. It's following the law. On the other hand, is it proportional? Is it suitable? Is it fitting? And we've already seen the ways in which all the characters' judgment is blighted by their own sin. And even those that are the most saintly, like Angelo, are perhaps the most guilty of that. Although there are obvious figures like Lucio, who is a rather disgraceful figure who's impregnated a prostitute with a child, but it's not going to be able to release her even. So there again, there's a plot and a subplot going on here, and the two reinforce one another, and we're regularly comparing and contrasting. Shakespeare uses foils in his plays to help us to think about the plot structure and the themes that arise out of it. So it's a very much, you can be entertained by Shakespeare, and we are entertained by Shakespeare, but we're also regularly taught by Shakespeare. He's very much of a didactic playwright. And that would be expected in Elizabethan drama. You must be teaching. And the teaching will be evident to the audience that is attentive to such things. But what Claudio affirms here at the outset to the Duke, disguised as the friar, is that he's willing to give up his life to save his sister's chastity, because he realizes the spiritual importance of her soul is more important than his physical life. There's a recognition, in other words, he thinks like a Christian. There are worse things you can do in life than die. You can imperil your eternal soul. So, having said that, and the Duke now is acting as a man doing something like administering last rites. He's preparing him for death. So you're going to die, and so are you ready for that? You need to repent of your sins, throw yourself upon the mercies of God, and be prepared to see God then. You're not going to hell for your offenses. You're going to be with Christ and see him. But are you ready for this? Having said that, the friar's dialogue is rather extraordinary, expresses doubt about Christian truth. He seems rather, his statement is that life is transient, it's of no value, doesn't mention heaven at all. So it's a very odd speech for the friar to make. Does it reflect the Duke's own views privately, or what's going on here with this? What it seems to do is unsettle Claudio. He's ready at the outset, and he's much like his sister. He's ready for death. The effect of the Duke's speech is to make him unsettled and not want to die. He'd rather so. He, oddly enough, even though he's the dramaturge figure, he misdirects him and creates the tension in the play. That comes when Claudio and his sister are pitted against one another, and he then, later on in the scene, is begging his sister to give up her chastity in favor of his life. So an unexpected turn once again. And here the Duke is not actually a positive figure, very much of a negative figure. But you wonder, what is he doing here? What's the purpose of this? Anyway, let me read some of the lines here. Duke, so then you hope of pardon from Lord Angelo? Claudio, the miserable have no other medicine but only hope. I have hope to live and am prepared to die. The Duke, be absolute for death. Either death or life shall thereby be the sweeter. Reason thus with life. If I do lose thee, I do lose a thing that none but fools would keep. A breath thou art, servile to all the skyey influences that dost this habitation where thou keepst hourly afflict. Merely thou art death's fool, for him thou laborest by thy flight to shun, and yet runs toward him still. Thou art not noble, for all the accommodations that thou bearest are nursed by baseness. Thou art by no means valiant, for thou dost fear the soft and tender fork of a poor worm. Thy best of rest is sleep, and that thou oft provokest, yet grossly fearest thy death, which is no more. Thou art not thyself, for thou exists on many 1,000 grains that issue out of dust. Happy thou art not, for what thou hast not, still thou strives to get, and what thou hast, forgettest. Thou art not certain, for thy complexion shifts to strange effects after the moon. If thou art rich, thou art poor, for like an ass whose back with ingots bows, thou bearest thy heavy riches but a journey, and death unloads thee. Friend, hast thou none, for thine own bowels, which do call thee sire, the mere effusion of thy proper loins, do curse the gout, sapego, and the rheum for ending thee no sooner. Thou hast nor youth nor age, but as it were an after dinner sleep, dreaming on both, for all thy blessed youth becomes as aged, and doth beg the alms of palsied eld. And when thou art old and rich, thou hast neither heat, affection, limb, nor beauty to make thy riches pleasant. What's yet in this that bears the name of life? Yet in this life lie hid 1,000 deaths, yet death we fear that makes these odds all even. So he is consoling him with the idea that life is something not worth living anyway. Why are you holding on to it? And he almost seems to me to be echoing John Donne in his, like, you're just a picture, it's asleep. It's one of his holy sonnets. I can hear the echoes in the speech. And Claudio responds with politeness, I humbly thank you. To sue to live I find I seek to die, and seeking death find life, let it come on. But no speech of heaven, of heavenly rewards, of an afterlife, of anything beyond that. It's just don't value life. And so he says, okay, I get that, but he's given nothing positive, just negative. And now when Isabella comes in, he's prepared for something that is going to be, as I say, the crisis scene of the whole play. Isabella, within. What? Ho! Peace here, grace and good company. The provost, who's there? Come in, the wish deserves a welcome. Good dear sir, ere long I'll visit you again. Most holy sir, I thank you. So the Duke absents himself along with the provost here, or is about to anyway. Enter Isabella. My busyness is a word or two with Claudio. And very welcome, says the provost. Look, Signor, here's your sister. Provost, a word with you. Provost, as many as you please. Bring me to hear them speak, where I may be concealed. Now, the way you would do this on stage, the two have to separate themselves from the others and sort of move forward a bit as if the others can't hear them, and they make no notice of the fact that they can. Again, we don't have modern cinematography to focus on this and to exclude the others. They're all on the stage. You can't take them off it. So you have to present it in some way. And in general, the speakers move forward and the ones not speaking come backward. If you have lighting, then you can put the light on them and put the others in darkness or something so it appears they're not there. Anyway, in Shakespeare's, they don't have the lighting to do that. At any rate, enter Isabella. Oh no, I've already got that. So they're gone. So Claudio, now sister, what's the comfort? Why, as all comforts are, most good indeed. Lord Angelo, having affairs to heaven, intends you for his swift ambassador, where you shall be in everlasting leisure. Therefore your best appointment make with speed, tomorrow you set on. He's sending you as an ambassador to heaven. Claudio, Is there no remedy? None, but such remedy as to save a head, to cleave a heart in twain. But is there any? Yes, brother, you may live. There is a devilish mercy in the judge. If you'll implore it, that will free your life, but fetter you till death. Perpetual durance, living forever in life without ever dying and going to see God. Aye, just perpetual durance, a restraint, though all the world's vastity you had to a determined scope. But in what nature? In such a one as you, consenting to it, would bark your honor from that trunk you bear and leave you naked. So she presents him as a tree with a bark on it, and would just strip the bark right off you. There would be nothing left of your true nature. You'd be exposed in your sinful humanity. Let me know the point. Oh, I do fear thee, Claudio, and I quake, lest thou a fever's life shouldst entertain, and 6 or 7 winters more respect than a perpetual honor. Darest thou die? The sense of death is most in apprehension, and the poor beetle that we tread upon in corporal sufferance finds a pang as great as when a giant dies. So she says more or less what the Duke had just said to him. Death is not that terrifying. Why give you me this shame? Think you I can a resolution fetch from flowery tenderness? If I must die, I will encounter darkness as a bride, and hug it in mine arms. There spake my brother. There my father's grave did utter forth a voice. Yes, thou must die. Thou art too noble to conserve a life in base appliances. This outward sainted deputy, referring now to Angelo, this outward sainted deputy, whose settled visage and deliberate word nips youth in the head, and follies doth anew, as falcon doth the fowl, is yet a devil. His filth within being cast, he would appear a pond as deep as hell. The princely Angelo, oh, 'tis the cunning livery of hell, the damned's body to invest and cover in princely guards. Dost thou think, Claudio, if I would yield him my virginity, thou mightst be freed? She expects him to share in her disgust at this. Oh, heavens, it cannot be. Yes, he would give thee it from this rank offense, so to offend him still. This night's the time that I should do what I abhor to name, or else thou diest tomorrow. Thou shalt not do it. Oh, were it but my life, I'd throw it down for your deliverance as frankly as a pin. Thanks, dear Isabel. Be ready, Claudio, for your death tomorrow. Yes. Has he affections in him? So has he affections in him that thus can make him bite the law by the nose when he would force it? Sure, it is no sin, or of the deadly 7, it is the least. Which is the least? If it were damnable, he being so wise, why would he for the momentary trick be perdurably fined? Oh, Isabel, what says my brother? Death is a fearful thing. So the transformation of the character here as he reflects on what is coming. And shamed life a hateful. Aye, but to die and go we know not where, to lie in cold obstruction and to rot, the sensible warm motion to become a needed clod, and the delighted spirit to bathe in fiery floods, or to reside in thrilling regions of thick-ribbed ice, reference to Dante. To be imprisoned in the viewless winds and blown with restless violence round about the pendant world, or to be worse than worst, of those that lawless and uncertain thought imagine, howling, 'tis too horrible. He's thinking of the Tempest, thinking of Paolo and Francesca, the 5th canto of the Inferno. The weariest and most loathed worldly life that age, ache, penury, and imprisonment can lay on nature is a paradise to what we fear of death. Now, note that he fears hell. Why does he fear hell? Does he not repent of what he did? Is he not ready for death? Is he not fit, as he says? He recognizes the sin, but does he really repent of what he did? Because it seems like he fears hell. As I said, the references aren't to purgatory here, as we'll find that they will be in Hamlet. They are references to hell as Dante portrays it. Alas, alas! And then throws himself at her. Sweet sister, let me live. What sin you do to save a brother's life, nature dispenses with the deed so far that it becomes a virtue. Oh, you beast! Oh, faithless coward! Oh, dishonest wretch! Wilt thou be made a man out of my vice? It is not a kind of incest. Is it not a kind of incest to take life from thine own sister's shame? What should I think? Heaven shield my mother, played my father fair. For such a warped slip of wildness ne'er issued from his blood. You're not my mother's son. You must be some other man's. There's no common nature here. You're a bastard. That's what she's saying. Take my defiance, die, perish might, but my bending down reprieve thee from thy fate. It should proceed. I'll pray 1,000 prayers for thy death. No word to save thee. Nay, hear me, Isabella. Oh, fie, fie, fie. Thy sin's not accidental, but a trade. Mercy to thee would prove itself a bawd. 'Tis best that thou diest quickly. Oh, hear me, Isabella. Now the Duke comes in. Okay, so the two who began as the same character, brother and sister, the holy couple, are just totally driven to opposite extremes, and she's pretty savage with her brother. Duke, vouchsafe a word, young sister, but one word. What is your will? Might you dispense with your leisure? Now note the verse here. He's dropped the trappings of nobility. He's speaking more like a common man. Might you dispense with your leisure? I would by and by have some speech with you. The satisfaction I would require is likewise your own benefit. I have no superfluous leisure, says Isabella. My stay must be stolen out of other affairs. But I will attend you a while. And then they walk apart. She walks apart from him, and the Duke speaks now to Claudio. Son, I have overheard what hath passed between you and your sister. Angelo had never the purpose to corrupt her, only he hath made an assay of her virtue to practice his judgment with the disposition of natures. He's lying to him. He's now saying Angelo has a good intention. It's just a trial. So he's stealing, as in giving steel to Claudio to persist in trying to push his sister towards the act. And he knows that this is not true. Angelo does intend this. He's not just testing out her virtue. But he says that he knows that it is just a test. She, having the truth of honor in her, hath made him that gracious denial which he is most glad to receive. I am confessor to Angelo, and I know this to be true. Therefore, prepare yourself to death. Do not satisfy your resolution with hopes that are fallible. Tomorrow you must die. Go to your knees and make ready. Let me ask my sister pardon. I am so out of love with life that I will sue to be rid of it. Hold you there. Farewell. Out he goes. Provost, a word with you. What's your will, father? That now you are come, you will be gone. Leave me a while with the maid. My mind promises with my habit. No law shall touch her by my company. Now here's one of the really odd, this is one of the oddities of the whole play. Because you know what happens at the end of the play, I'm assuming you having read now. The Duke will end up marrying her. So this is a really odd thing. What has been tested? He suggests that Angela's been testing her all along. It sounds to me like the Duke has been testing her. Is she really virtuous? Is she going to set her virtue aside to save her brother's life? Like how truthful is she to her profession? Just like Angela was attracted to her, so likewise the Duke. But he has good intentions. So again, now Angela and the Duke are foils for one another of sorts. As I say, you can have multiple foils. But he's tested her, and he gives, as I say, gives a lie to Claudio to prepare him for death. Again, he's manipulating the scene. I don't think Shakespeare's not recommending this as a practice for people to act in life. Don't be manipulating people around you to try and get them and test them. It's the dramaturge figure, the dramatist, that is doing this to his audience, and it needs to be seen in that light. It's not a model of ethical conduct. You just go lying to people to get them ready for these sorts of things, and you just keep going around lying all the time. It's understood, okay, by the audience that this is the situation here. Okay, so no law shall touch her by my company. In good time. Out he goes. The Duke, now turning to Isabella. The hand that hath made you fair hath made you good. The goodness that is cheap in beauty makes beauty brief in goodness. But grace, being the soul of your complexion, shall keep the body of it ever fair. The assault that Angelo hath made to you, fortune hath conveyed to my understanding. And but that frailty hath examples for his falling. I should wonder at Angelo. How will you do to content this substitute and to save your brother? I am now going to resolve him. I had rather my brother die by the law than that my son should be unlawfully born. But oh, how much is the good Duke deceived in Angelo. If ever he return, and I can speak to him, I will open my lips in vain, or discover his government. That shall not be much amiss, says the Duke. And that shall not be much amiss. Yet, as the matter now stands, he will avoid your accusation. He made trial of you only. Now he says the same thing about Angelo to Isabella. He's just testing you. He doesn't intend on going through it. And again, why is he doing this thing? But again, he's testing them from multiple sides. The characters. Measuring them, getting their measure. And then he's going to heal them in accordance with their fallibility, their sin, whatever. So, he will avoid your accusation. He made trial of you only. Now, does the Duke think this, or is this what he's going to say? And I think it's probably, despite what I just said, it's the latter. He's going to claim, oh, I was just testing to see what she was like. I wasn't really intending to, force her to into an adulterous action here. None of that. That was never the intent. Therefore, fasten your ear on my advising. To the love I have in doing good, a remedy presents itself. I do make myself believe that you may most uprighteously do a poor, wronged lady a merited benefit. Redeem your brother from the angry law. Do not stain your own gracious person, and much please the absent Duke, if peradventure he shall ever return to having hearing of this business. So I have a proposal to solve it. It's a very modest proposal. I'm going to solve all your problems here. Let me hear you speak farther. I have spirit to do anything that appears not foul in the truth of my spirit. Virtue is bold, and goodness never fearful. Have you not heard speak of Mariana, the sister of Frederick, the great soldier who miscarried at sea? I have heard of the lady, and good words went with her name. She should this Angelo have married, was affianced to her by oath. In other words, exactly like Claudio. Was affianced by oath, and the nuptial appointed between which time of the contract and limit of the solemnity her brother Frederick was racked at sea, having in that perished vessel the dowry of his sister. So the dowry didn't arrive. Exact same scenario that he's now judging Claudio must die by. And yet that was also his own background. So that Lady Mariana. But mark how heavily this befell to the poor gentlewoman. There she lost a noble and renowned brother, in his love toward her ever most kind and natural, with him the portion and sinew of her fortune, her marriage dowry, with both her combinate husband, this well-seeming Angelo. So Angelo, once he realized he wasn't going to get a dowry for Mariana, had no interest in Mariana. Give me the bride price as well, the dowry, and then I'll marry her. I really like her, and I like her with her money. If she doesn't have the money, I'm not interested. But he has already done what Claudio's done. Already. So there's a difference between the two. There's a foil, yes, but one remained faithful and the other has abandoned his affiance or his fiancée. Can this be so? Did Angelo so leave her, left her in her tears, and dried not one of them with his comfort, swallowed his vows whole, pretending in her discoveries of dishonor, in few, bestowed her on her own lamentation, which he yet wears for his sake. And he, a marble to her tears, is washed with them, but relents not. She hasn't exposed him. She loves him. She doesn't want to dishonor him. And she bears all the dishonor because she's pregnant. You can see that she has had a child. Where's the man? There is no man. Oh dear. So she's disgraced. And he appears the picture of virtue. And Isabella, what a merit were it in death to take this poor maid from the world. What corruption in this life, that it will let this man live. But how out of this can she avail? It is a rupture that you may easily heal. And the cure of it not only saves your brother, but keeps you from dishonor in doing it. Show me how, good father. Okay, so now comes one of the many substitutions. And let me just talk about this briefly. I'll expand on it later, but substitution is one of the main themes of the play. And substitution, theologically speaking, we recognize that this is the importance of what happens at the cross. A substitutionary atonement. Christ's death means our life, right? That's there at the cross, substitution. Shakespeare figures this forth in the play in various ways. The first one we've already seen, Angelo is a substitute for the Duke. That's clear. He's standing in his stead. But we've also just seen the second proposal by which this substitution will be presented in the play, this figure, and that is Isabella's virtue will be substituted for Claudio's life. Thirdly, and that this is now what we're having proposed to us, the so-called bed trick, Mariana is going to be substituted for Isabella. Angelo believes that he is going to have his way with Isabella, but in the dark, this woman who he already has a relationship, Mariana, who's been faithful to him, is going to be in the room, and he thinks that he's been with Isabella when in fact he's still with Mariana. So that's the third substitution, and then we're going to find there are a few others that are added to it. I'll get to that in a second. But this theme of substitution grows, and Shakespeare is reinforcing the importance of substitution and atonement in terms of justice, measure for measure, an eye for an eye. What's appropriate? Of what value is life to God? And how will he rectify it? How will he fix the problem? Now, thus far, Isabella, as I say, has only seen shame in the affair, and of course there is only shame, but what is proposed here is a way of healing what is wounded. Now this is and he explicitly mentions grace as well as the means of rectifying this. So a very important scene here And any questions about that so far? I need to move swiftly, but I needed to really dig down on Act 3, Scene 1. It's just a pivotal scene in terms of the tragic potential, but also the immediate then possibility of reversal. And it's not going to be an unmitigated move towards comedy at this point. There are other things that will intervene whereby the Duke's attempts to orchestrate the plot are going to be undone by other characters acting unexpectedly, like bringing forward the execution and so forth, which we're going to find does happen. Now, Act 3, Scene 2, as I say, is the subplot. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but Lucio, as I say, has impregnated a prostitute who is with child, but won't pay bail to release her because she's been imprisoned for having a child out of wedlock, the new ordinances, etc. And Pompey and Overdone, for that matter, from jail. He's not going to do this with any of them, line 68. And in fact, he wishes that the bail were even greater and advocates even stricter laws. So he's now trying to appear virtuous in a city that is now openly committed to virtue. Well, that's what I'm like. And so Lucio is in response to, again, a very similar sort. So Lucio is very much like Claudio and Angelo. So the three of them are foils for one another. How does he act in the same situation? Again, he acts a lot like Angelo. Whitewashes it. Now, Mistress Overdone makes a very interesting comment on this. I think the line is right. I think it's 252. No, it's not. It can't be. So I can't read my own writing. So what is it? Is it 282? No, can't be either because the scene ends there. So where is Mistress Overdone? No. There it is. And it is 198. Mistress Overdone. My lord, this is one Lucio's information against me. Mistress Kate Keepdown. In Dickensian names. Mistress Kate Keepdown was with child in him in the Duke's time. He promised her marriage. His child is 1.25 years old, come Philip and Jacob. I have kept it myself, and see how he goes about to abuse me. That fellow, said Aeschylus, is a fellow of much license. Now note the word license here. I talked about liberty and license in relation to the law. There's a fellow of much license. Let him be called before us. Away with her to prison. Go to no more words. Okay, so she outs him, and the Duke knows about this, by the way, and he's also testing Lucio. How's Lucio, the nobleman, going to be acting in a situation where he could also do well here in the situation? And the answer is that he slanders the Duke. So just before this, so the Duke is absent, and here he's disguised as the friar. What does the Lucio say about the Duke? Line 172. He's going to accuse the Duke of being basically a serial philanderer, a frequenter of bawdy houses himself, etc., etc. Why should he die, sir, says the Duke. Why? For filling a bottle with a tun dish. I would, in other words, being promiscuous. I would the Duke we talk of were returned again. This ungenitured agent will unpeople the province with continency. Sparrows must not build in his house eaves because they are lecherous. The Duke yet would have had dark deeds darkly answered. He would never bring them to light. Would he were returned. Marry, this Claudio is condemned for untrussing. Farewell, good friar, I pray thee, pray for me. The Duke, I say to thee again, would eat mutton Fridays. He doesn't care about virtue. He's a licentious man just like I am. He's now past it, yet, and I say to thee, he would mouth with a beggar. though she smelt brown bread and garlic. Say that I said so. Farewell. And he goes away. Now the Duke, having heard his character slandered, that he is basically as bad, if not worse, in fact he is worse than Lucio, because he appeared so much better, he was a rank hypocrite. The Duke's comment, no might nor greatness in mortality can censure scape, back wounding calumny, the whitest virtue strikes. What king so strong can tie the gall up in the slanderous tongue? But who comes here? So the Duke is chafed by what's been said here. And it's just like, I never did anything of the sort, but I'm going to get slandered all the same. So the Duke is himself learning something here by going incognito. He's learning what the people think of him in his absence. And again, so this is the interesting thing. Again, the playwright, although he is pulling all the strings, nonetheless is a character in the play, and he is learning in the process, which again points us to a teacher outside of the drama. Directs it in a what we would regard as a theological direction here. So his function as a teacher is not exclusive of him being also a learner. So Shakespeare is teaching us about this once again. So the tragic potential of the play is not yet defeated, because there are tragic themes that appear towards the end of Act 3 here and even into Act 4, because under the cover of darkness, Act 4, Scene 1 to Act 4, Scene 3, Angelo and Mariana's tryst is being carried out. He thinks it's Isabella, but it's Mariana. And Angelo, who believes he has slept with Isabella, breaks his word. He's not going to let her brother free. And he decides he's going to execute Claudio anyway. He wants to have his cake and eat it as well. Breaks his vow, decides to execute Claudio, and there's a lot of play on connections with sex and death here. But the Duke persists in his role as the dramaturge figure, and it comes forward, and Angelo refuses to spare Claudio. And now the Duke has to intervene actively in the play to spare Claudio. He can't hope that characters act rightly, having been released, because the characters are, with their authority, going to destroy a life. And he has to intervene. So Act 4, Scene 2, line 123 is what I have in my notes. I don't know if that's what we have here. Act 4, Scene 2, line 123. Is that right? I don't even know if it's right. Can that be right? Yes, the provost reads a letter to the Duke. Whatsoever you may hear to the contrary, let Claudio be executed by 4 of the clock, and in the afternoon, Barnardine. For my better satisfaction, let me have Claudio's head sent me by 5. Let this be duly performed, with the thought that more depends on it than we must yet deliver. Thus fail not to do your office, as you will answer it at your peril. What say you to this, sir? The Duke, what is that Barnardine who is to be executed in the afternoon? A Bohemian born, but here nursed up and bred, one that is a prisoner 9 years old. He's been in prison since he was 9. How came it that the absent Duke had not either delivered him to his liberty or executed him? I have heard it was ever his manner to do so, to do one or the other, not just leave him rotting in prison forever. Provost, his friends still wrought reprieves for him, and indeed his fact till now in the government of Lord Angelo came not to an undoubtful proof. Is it now apparent? Most manifest, and not denied by himself. So he was guilty of the act, for which he must die, and would have died, and the Duke would have executed him as well. You either set him free or execute him. He wouldn't have left him to rot in prison. There's going to be judgment one way or the other. Being in prison is not a form of judgment. It's a form of rehabilitation. That's what the modern prison is. It's meant there to bring people to repentance. Does it succeed in that? And the answer is no, almost never. So ought it to be used as it is? Probably not. Let me not get off topic on that. It was not intended for what it was intended for certain purposes, never succeeded in that task. The mass prisons, people come out worse than they were when they went in and have lost years and decades of their lives. But here, Barnardine is going to be executed, and the Duke lets it happen. He lets it happen. And that will suit his ends. And the Duke is even more interested in what's the state of his soul. Hath he borne himself penitently in prison? How seems he to be touched? A man that apprehends death no more dreadfully, but as a drunken sleep, careless, reckless, and fearless of what's past, present, or to come, insensible of mortality, and desperately mortal. He wants advice. He will hear none. He hath evermore had the liberty of the prison. Give him leave to escape hence. He would not. Drunk many times a day, if not many days, entirely drunk. We have very oft awaked him as if to carry him to execution, and showed him a seeming warrant for it. It hath not moved him at all. More of him anon. There is written in your brow, provost, honesty and constancy. If I read it not truly, my ancient skill beguiles me, but in the boldness of my cunning I will lay myself in hazard. Claudio, whom here you have warrant to execute, is no greater forfeit to the law than Angelo, who hath sentenced him. To make you understand this in a manifested effect, I crave but 4 days' respite, for the which you are to do me both a present and a dangerous courtesy. Pray, sir, in what? In the delaying death. Don't kill him yet. Wait 4 days. Alack! How may I do it, having the hour limited, and an express command, under penalty, to deliver his head in the view of Angelo? I may make my case as Claudio's, to cross this in the smallest. It's a capital offense for me to do this. By the vow of mine order, I warrant you, if my instructions may be your guide, let this Barnardine be this morning executed, and his head borne to Angelo. That's what we're going to... So, Barnardine will be the substitute for Claudio, fourth substitution, and finally, there's going to be another one at the end, but here's the fourth substitution, and the provost says, well, Angelo's seen both heads. And he will discover the favor. Oh, death's a great disguiser, and you may add to it. Shave the head, tie the beard, say it was the desire of the penitent to be so bared before his death. You know the course is common. If anything fall to you upon this, more than thanks and good fortune, by the saint whom I profess, I will plead against it with my life. Pardon me, good father, it is against my oath. Were you sworn to the Duke or to the deputy? To him and to his substitutes. You will think you have made no offense if the Duke avouch the justice of your dealing? But what likelihood is in that? Not a resemblance, but a certainty. Yet since I see you fearful that neither my coat, integrity, nor persuasion can with ease attempt you, I will go further than I meant, to pluck all fears out of you. Look you, sir, here is the hand and seal of the Duke. You know the character, I doubt not, and the signet is not strange to you. I know them both. So he doesn't say, I'm the Duke. He says, I've got this paper that testifies that the Duke orders this. And you know his signet, it's on this. Okay. The contents of this is the return of the Duke. You shall anon overread it at your pleasure, where you shall find within these 2 days he will be here. This is a thing that Angelo knows not. For he, this very day, receives letters of strange tenor, perchance of the Duke's death, perchance entering into some monastery, but by chance nothing of what is writ. Look, the unfolding star calls up the shepherd. Now, reference to the incarnation. Put not yourself into amazement. In 4 days' time, 3 days, there'll be a resurrection now, right? So draw as the incarnation, the resurrection. There, the 3 days, the death will lead to life, all pulled together here in the telling of the story. Put not yourself into amazement how these things should be. All difficulties are but easy when they are known. Call your executioner and off with Barnardine's head. I will give him a present shrift and advise him for a better place. Yet you are amazed, but this shall absolutely resolve you. Come away, it is almost clear now. Now the Pompey, the clown, etc. I'm going to skip over this subplots and move on through this. But at this point, so all sorts of substitutions of bodies, all of which, as I say, further the theological themes of the play and reinforce justice. And a measure for a measure, a life for a life, a body for a body, a substitute for another substitute. And in Act 4, Scene 3, we learn that a man by the name of Ragozine dies of natural causes. And in Act 4, Scene 3, line 78, there's a very interesting line here. I'll start with the provost. Pick up in line 69, Act 4, Scene 3, line 69, informing just what I just said. Here in the prison, Father, there died this morning of a cruel fever one Ragozine, a most notorious pirate, a man of Claudio's years, his beard and head just of his color. What if we do omit this reprobate till he were well inclined, and satisfy the deputy with the visage of Ragozine, more like to Claudio? Oh, 'tis an accident that heaven provides. Dispatch it presently. The hour draws on, prefixed by Angelo. See this be done, and sent according to command, whiles I persuade this rude wretch willingly to die. This must be done, good father, presently. But Barnardine must die this afternoon. And how shall we continue Claudio to save me from the danger that might come if he were known alive? Let this be done. Put them in secret holds, both Barnardine and Claudio, ere twice the sun hath made his journal greeting to yon generation, you shall find your safety manifested. I am your free dependent. Note that the provost has to have faith in the Duke, and on the third day, deliverance will happen. I am your free dependent. Quick, dispatch, and send the head to Angelo. Provost exits. Now will I write letters to Angelo, the provost, he shall bear them, whose contents shall witness to him I am near at home, and that by great injunctions I am bound to enter publicly. Him I'll desire to meet me at the consecrated fount, a league below the city, and from thence by cold gradation and wheel balanced form we shall proceed with Angelo, and comes in with the head, etc. So Ragozine is going to substitute himself for Barnardine. But now it's not the Duke's orchestration, it's heavenly provision. It's divine providence that's furthering the same ends. And this is, so again, the Duke, who is the surrogate for the playwright, is acknowledging that although he does orchestrate what happens on the stage, there's an orchestrator that transcends his wisdom and his power. And that happens in the play. So it's a miracle that should happen. So as I say, Ragozine comes in here and substitutes himself for Barnardine, and yet we're still left with Angelo believing he slept with Isabella. And the question is simply, why does he break his word? Like, what's in it for him? Maybe he fears that Claudio and Isabella would combine forces and expose him. Who knows? Bad actors tend to impute their own failings to others, and they can't imagine righteous dealings from anyone. They suspect treason, and that's why they become more and more tyrannical. This is the problem with evil, is that evil characters become more and more evil. They become more and more desperate. They break all fealty, and they eventually bring themselves down. Now, Shakespeare's going to portray that as well in his tragic heroes, by the way. He's going to portray them as becoming worse and worse individuals. And that's what we see here as well. But there are three fictions which the Duke creates. Let me just mention those. One is when he disguises himself as a friar. Two, when he feigns the death of Claudio. And three is the bed trick between Mariana and Isabella. And so, as I say, we have what is, by all pretenses here, an example of theater for the audience. There are actors. There are some who are simply actors. Claudio's an actor. He doesn't observe anything. He's just being used. He speaks and so forth. Some are actors as well as the audience. Isabella, for example, she's an actor in the play, but also she watches what's going on, and to some degree, so she's an ambivalent figure. She's on this side of the stage and on that side of the stage. Isabella is. Mariana does as well, by the way, because she participates in the bed trick, but she doesn't know the truth about the Duke. She doesn't know Claudio's fate, so she's ignorant of some things, but she knows nonetheless that she's being brought together with Angelo. And then finally, there is figures that represent the audience, like the provost and Friar Peter, who seem more in on the Duke's stories. So some, as I say, are only actors. Some are sort of hybrids, part actor, part audience, and some are entirely audience. Now, this is more complicated than any play. And that's because I think he's making a commentary on more than theater. It's to some degree, it's making theater into sort of a magical thing, a providential thing, even a theological thing, just like he does in A Midsummer Night's Dream, because it's improbable, like highly improbable, in fact impossible, the events that transpire. And yet he presents it in this way. And nobody has a problem with Shakespeare doing this. It seems if you suspended your disbelief long enough and were willing to be led by the playwright through it, you're going to be satisfied that although the outcomes are improbable, it's still entertaining and it's teaching you something which you think is true. So you're going to regard the fictional elements as actually inconsequential, because the truth is so much stronger than the fictional elements. So anyway, Act 5, when we come to it, recapitulates the whole play. There are three revelations of the three fictions. Firstly, it's revealed, so at this point there's again, and this furthers the theological themes, there's revelation at the end. The great unveiling, or it's an apocalypse, things that were hidden before, the cloak has been removed. And what is that? It's revealed that Mariana slept with Angelo. The Duke takes his disguise off and reveals that he was there all along in the guise of the friar. And finally, it's revealed that Claudio is alive. Now, Isabella does not know all of this. And Isabella is the character of most importance here. Isabella is a figure that, of course, is an actor in the play, but she's also going to be bride to the Duke. And the Duke is, yes, a figure of the playwright, but he also seems to be working out redemption. So in a sense, in that limited sense, he's a Christ figure. And Isabella is his virtuous bride. And so he is testing her again the same way that we see, it's actually inverted, but Penelope tests Odysseus at the end. Even at the end, after he keeps on testing her. Because in Act 4, Scene 3, Isabella is asked to plead for justice because she believes Claudio's dead. But she is feigning that it was her. She says she slept with Angelo. Angelo thinks that it's her. She's angry about it. So she's not being wholly truthful in this. Now, it's a pretty small failing to present this fiction to save a life, but still. The effect of this is to make her revengeful. Act 4, Scene 3, line... Sorry. Yeah, no, I don't want to go to that. 5:1:20. Act 5, Scene 1, line 20. What does Isabella say? Friar Peter, now is your time. Speak loud and kneel before him. Justice, O royal Duke, veil your regard upon a wronged. I would fain have said a maid. O worthy prince, dishonor not your eye by throwing it on any other object, till you have heard me in my true complaint, and given me justice, 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 justice. Relate your wrongs. In what? By whom? Be brief. Here is Lord Angelo shall give you justice. Reveal yourself to him. O worthy Duke, you bid me seek redemption of the devil. Hear me yourself, for that which I must speak must either punish me, not being believed, or wring redress from you. Hear me, oh, hear me, hear. My lord, her wits, I fear me, are not firm. She hath been a suitor to me for her brother, cut off by course of justice. By course of justice? And she will speak most bitterly and strange. Most strange, but yet most truly will I speak. That Angelo's forsworn, is it not strange? That Angelo's a murderer, is it not strange? That Angelo is an adulterous thief, an hypocrite, a virgin violator, is it not strange and strange? Nay, it is 10 times strange. Now the Duke acts like he doesn't believe her. It is not truer he is Angelo than this is all as true as it is strange. Nay, it is 10 times true, for truth is truth, to the end of reckoning. Away with her, says the Duke. Poor soul, she speaks this in the infirmity of sense. Isabel, oh, Prince, I conjure thee, as thou believest there is another comfort than this in the world, that thou neglect me not. With that opinion that I am touched with madness, make not impossible that which but seems unlike. 'Tis not impossible, but one the wicked caitiff on the ground may seem as shy, as grave, as just, as absolute as Angelo. Even so may Angelo, in all his dressings, characts, titles, forms, be an arch villain. Believe it, royal prince. If he be less, he's nothing. But he's more. Had I more name for badness? By mine honesty, Duke, if she be mad, as I believe no other, her madness had the oddest frame of sense, such a dependency of thing on thing, as e'er I heard in madness. So the charge is mad, but it seems she's very fixed on it. There's no deviation from it. It makes, there's coherence in her charges, consistency, etc. So this play out of it makes Isabella wild with rage. She wants vengeance for the injustice. So she's calling at the end for a very severe measure to be taken here. And the Duke is using her as an actor to further his ends here. Her rage at sin and injustice here. And as I say, the Duke feigns belief in Angelo's side of the story. Now, what this does is it allows Angelo the opportunity to confess his guilt. And he won't do so. Now, when Mariana comes forth, it shows that Angelo is guilty in intention but not in action. He has not violated the nun. He's violated the woman he'd already violated. And Angelo, however, and this is the worst bit, believes he can get away with it, and he denies Mariana's story. So he keeps digging. Even though there's an opportunity for him to get out of it, oh, I didn't do this, and it was with this woman who I'm already affianced to, and maybe that there might be a better outcome, but again, he imagines that the Duke is going to judge the way he has, and he can't imagine mercy. He thinks that he is going to have to suffer measure for measure, because he ordered Claudio's death when he committed the same sort of thing, and since he was willing to judge a man for that, he thinks he deserves that same judgment, which he does, by the way. He deserves that judgment. And so he doubles down on his hypocrisy, says, it's not true. Who's this woman? Mariana. It wasn't her. It was Isabella. Now, both Angelo and Isabella line 231, ask for a very strict, demanding law with no exceptions, no mercy, no possibility of grace. And this is interesting, because Isabella, to this point, has presented grace in terms of her profession of faith. She understands substitution, talks about the grace of God, and wishes that earthly authorities were more like God in their conduct and understood grace. In the end, is raging and demanding death for what's happened here. Both Angelo and Isabella. So they are foils for one another once again. Very unlike in some ways, obviously, but in their demand for severe justice, they want this. Now, Lucio, subplot comes back, 354, and he feels the weight of his guilt for discrediting the Duke, for perverting the truth and slandering the Duke. And the Duke wants to know if Aeschylus is willing to consider the accusations made by himself in the friar's guise, and he doesn't. He doesn't want to do it. And Lucio is unrepentant to the very end. All he fears is punishment. He does not rectify, he doesn't care about justice or anything in the end. So all the characters are weighed and measured. In the end, even Angelo, who keeps doubling down and doubling down, when all of the disguises that he tries to put on himself are taken away, he confesses and throws himself on the Duke's mercy. Lucio never does. He's like Ragozin, the drunkard, who just simply will not, even in the face of death, repent. He simply won't. So Lucio is the character, just like Ragozin, on whom the Duke's attempt to reform fails. He can't redeem this man. He's hardened in his sin. He is impossible to bring to confession. And because of this, he gets killed. So only them. And so again, a theological point is being made about God's abiding mercy, his steadfast love, and his unwillingness to let the unrighteous be condemned to hell for their sins. But if they persist in it, then this is the outcome. But he magnifies grace in the whole play. And the attempt, and again, replicating what he understands theologically, this is how God himself acts. Not harshly, not precipitously, with grace, with forbearance, with all attempts to bring people to repentance, even to the last day of their lives. And yet if they persist in it and they want nothing else, then this is what's going to happen. So again, it's a theological statement as much as anything. Now, as I say, at the end of it, and this is why I say it's a theological play more than anything, we have this very odd, to some degree, straining of the whole genre of comedy, where you would have thought Isabella was going to now go off to a convent, and instead she ends up being married off to the Duke. The convent says, well, I kind of like you. It's very, very odd. There's no indication of this throughout the play. Nothing really has been said. And she is forced to learn mercy. The bridegroom has shown the bride what mercy is. The bride, representing perhaps the church, is not able to understand from her perspective what mercy is. The Duke shows her and marries her. Bit forced. All the same, resurrection and redemption and grace are seen there right in the end, and again in the marriage scene. Everything gets resolved. So last speech of the play, Lucio and the Duke, and then the Duke giving his soliloquy at the end. But Lucio wants, he just slanders everyone right to the very end. Because what's offered to him? We can marry the woman that he's had child with. And Lucio's response is, no, I'll backtrack a bit. I beseech your highness, says Lucio, do not marry me to a whore. Your highness said, even now I made you a duke. Good my lord, do not recompense me in making me a cuckold. Cuckold? It was him that was with her. There's no third part. Making me a cuckold. Upon mine honor thou shalt marry her. Thy slanders I forgive, and therewithal remit thy other forfeits. Take him to prison, and see our pleasure herein executed. Marrying a punk, my lord is pressing to death, whipping and hanging. Slandering a prince deserves it. So he would have been gracious to Lucio to the end, and he will not accept it. I have to marry this prostitute, this whore? Anyway, won't accept it. So, last speech. She, now with others around, Claudio, that you wronged, look you to restore. Joy to you, Mariana. Love her, Angelo. I have confessed her, and I know her virtue. Thanks, good friend Aeschylus, for thy much goodness. There's more behind that is more gratulate. Thanks, Provost, for thy care and secrecy. We shall employ thee in a worthier place. Forgive him, Angelo, that brought you home the head of Ragozine for Claudio's. The offense pardons itself. Dear Isabel, I have a motion much imports your good. Whereto, if you'll a willing ear incline, what's mine is yours, and what is yours is mine. So bring us to our palace, where we'll show what's yet behind. That's meet you all should know. And then they go. She doesn't say whether she'll accept the marriage, by the way, but it's a marriage proposal. Right? I'll share what I have, and you'll share what you have. That's the end of the play.
I found it weird that she
Didn't answer. Yeah. So how do you act? How do you act as her at this point? Is she happy? Is she like, what?
I'm sure if you're watching it too, silence must be deafening when you're like actually watching it. Like, it takes such a long time.
This is the hardest thing in any plays and this is where the actor comes in, and the playwright. I mean, whoever is the director here. How do I interpret this character? How is the character act in this? And to some degree, this is your opportunity to make the character your own. And because there's no direction here, we don't know how she responds even. Presumably, she's going to respond favorably, and she's not irate at the proposal. But how would you express that? I don't know. But yes, it's an odd ending in that sense. Maybe appropriate, but there you go. Any other comments or questions? Measure for measure. No.